Do you have anybody in chat who's into gambling? Or if you're watching this on YouTube and you're into gambling, you can let me know. Do you guys like to gamble a little bit every now and again? Not like gamble your entire life away, right? But like gamble every now and again, like a tiny bit. Salty bets to represent. No, I'm gay. Okay. Okay. Is it illegal for gay people to gamble? I wasn't sure. Only if we can gamble on side chat. I'd like it to come sometime. One day. I'm personally not a big gambling person. Like, I make bets and everything, but I'm not somebody who likes to pull that many gambles, I must say. I typically like to play things pretty like conservatively, and a lot of risk doesn't typically play into a lot of that, right? Yeah, it's gambling's fun with fake currency. Gambling becomes a lot less fun when the stakes are higher. You ever notice that? For like some people, it becomes way more fun when the stakes are higher. But for a lot of people, especially when they're put into a position where, they're the gambling chip, it starts to become a lot less fun, especially if you lose a lot, which if you gamble, you tend to do. Now, why are we talking about this? Well, the reason I'm talking about this is because while you may or may not be into gambling, the people who are into gambling are the Democrats. And I want to talk about something really quick because this has been like simmering for a while, but I decided that now would be like a great time to actually touch on this issue. I haven't heard many other people talk about it, and I think it's something that we probably should touch on, right? Now, Democrats have a lot of money, okay? I'm not sure if you knew this, but Democrats have a bunch of money, like a lot of money. Dems topped GOP in raising and spending dark money disclosed donors in 2020. Now, back in 2020, during the 2020 election, where Biden beat mean Orange Man, because Orange Man do indeed be bad, I found that 15 of the most politically active nonprofit organizations that typically support Democrats spent more than $1.5 billion compared to the GOP's only $900 million. $1.5 billion. That's a lot of money. And the thing is, they still have a lot of money laying around. Okay? This isn't something, they're pretty flush for cash still. They have a lot of money that was like just floating around that they had that was burning a hole in their pocket. So they decided that they want to spend it on something. Well, what did they want to spend it on? It seems like they wanted to spend it on their good friends, the GOP. You may be asking yourself a question that many other people are asking. Why are the Democrats funding the GOP fringe? If you have not heard about this, what's been happening is that Democrats have been using their money that they've gotten from, raising it from donors and getting it from dues from some members and big political groups that donate to political campaigns. They've been sitting on that money and they've decided to give it to Republicans. But no, not just any Republicans. The worst Republicans. And when I say the worst, I mean the actual worst. They're not, this isn't an accident. They're doing this all on purpose, giving tens of millions of dollars to Republican candidates, the most radical, the most extreme Republican candidates that they could possibly find, to boost them up, basically speeding up the radicalization of the Republican Party. And for why? Well, because they're gambling. And the gamble that the Democrats are making is that they're saying that Republicans, the Republicans that they boost up to hopefully win, hopefully for them, win Republican primaries, will be able to have enough support amongst Republicans to win the Republican primary, but won't have enough to win the general election, which is, mind you, a gamble. Okay? Now, chat, can you press 1 in chat if you think that this is going to work out? Can you type 2 in chat if you don't think it'll work out? 2? It's dumb as fuck. How can you say that this is a dumb idea? Did you know that this idea was put together by our very own former Senator Claire McCaskill of Missouri. If you were wondering who came up with this amazing plan that's now swooping through the DNC, it's Claire McCaskill. Claire McCaskill, the former Democratic senator from Missouri who lost her seat to a Republican back in, I think, 2018, was it? Or 2020? I think it's 2018, right? Yeah, 2018. I wonder why she's former. Yeah, she lost to Hawley. She lost to Jack Hawley. To Josh Hawley, sorry. She lost to Josh. Yes, this is the woman who lost to Josh Hawley. And her idea was something that she did back in 10 years ago, back in 2012, where what she did was she found the worst Republican that was running against her, the most radical, the most extreme, gave him a bunch of money and called him too conservative, and then she won. So it worked back 10 years ago, but they're saying that not only will it work 10 years ago, that it's going to work again today. Fringe GOP candidates who are struggling in primaries are getting temporary aid from unusual allies. Democrats are spending tens of millions of dollars on ads in Republican primaries depicting the more radical contender as too conservative, which may be an effective attack in the general election, but appeals to Republican voters in primaries. The upside for Democrats is that this can lead to the GOP nominee candidates who are less attractive to swing voters in November. Wild shit, dude. Mayor Richard Irving, a conservative veteran and former prosecutor who emphasizes fighting crime, cutting taxes and spending, and cleaning up politics, and who happens to be black, would be a strong contender in November. That's why Governor J.B. Pritzker and the Democratic Governors Association are spending an estimated $32 million labeling Mr. Irving's primary opponent, Senator Darren Bailey, as too conservative for Illinois. Bailey, a freshman legislator from downstate district along the Indiana border, lacks a lot of media coverage. The GOP's best chance to win statewide is a nominee who renews the party's strength in the northern suburbs while still attracting support from downstate Republicans. But this guy, Bailey, doesn't do that. Now, we can look a little bit into Bailey, okay? So here's Bailey, right? Political career. So what is this? Let's just take a look at things that Bailey has done and said and, likes to do. In 2019, Bailey and 7 other Republicans sponsored a resolution calling for the city of Chicago to become its own state, claiming that the majority of residents in downstate disagree with the city of Chicago's residents on key issues like gun ownership, abortion, immigration, and other policy issues. It's insane. It's insane. And he called it a warning shot for Chicago. Just get rid of, listen, the Republicans keep losing statewide. If we just get rid of the black people, it'll be way easier. So true. In April 2020, Bailey sued the governor, claiming that the governor's stay-at-home order to mitigate the COVID-19 effects was affecting his county. So he tried to overturn this. He tried to overturn like mask mandates and stuff like this. Following the 2020 election, Bailey refused to acknowledge Joe Biden fairly beat Donald Trump, saying that he does not know if Trump's disproven claims of voter fraud were legitimate. In 2021, he announced his candidacy for governor. It's just so much. Bailey currently serves on 2 committees: agriculture and education. Oh, my bad. I forgot about this one. Before a campaign appearance on July 4, 2022, in the wake of the Highland Park parade shooting, Bailey stated in the live stream, "The shooter is still at large, so let's pray for justice to prevail. And then let's move on and let's celebrate the independence of this nation." He received backlash for his statements. He's like, yeah, a bunch of people died in the parade. but the grill is still hot. We got some hot dogs, but listen, some people died, but hey, they would have wanted us to finish this Modelo. Hey, come on. Come on. Same day, people died. He's like, I still got some hot dogs ready. Oh man. So there's this guy. Okay, so there's that guy that they're boosting up. All right. They're also boosting people in Colorado. Voters in Colorado primaries are seeing similar Democratic-funded ads ginning up Republican support for GOP candidates who seem easier to beat in the general. As of March 31st, Republican State Representative Ron Hanks raised $57,000 and had $16,000 in cash, while the frontrunner had raised $1.4 million. All right. Concerned that Odia could give Michael Bennett a real fight, Democrats are spending as much as $3.5 million. So they're lapping. They're not only giving a lot of money to the guy who's like running really far behind, they're lapping the fundraiser. They're spending more money on Republican primaries than Republicans are on Republican primaries. This is an obscene amount of meddling in elections. This is insanity. They're not like, they don't have their hands in it. They're like shoulder deep. They're reaching with their fingertips in there, man. That's insanity. This is wild. And you guessed it. They called him too conservative. The ads accused Hank of wanting to ban all abortions, getting a border wall, expand gun rights, and all that type of stuff, right? Mr. Odia's campaign suspects Democrats are also behind mailers painting Mr. Odia as a liberal in favor of gun control, with no mention of his endorsement by the state chapter of the NRA. That's insane. So just so you know, so we're all on the same page here really quickly. What are the Democrats doing? They are effectively force radicalizing the Republican Party. If you've wondered where a lot of these politicians who come out of nowhere with a lot of money and seemingly a lot of support, where they've come from, and you're like worrying about like what's going on, what's actually been happening is that the Democrats have been making sure that you know who these people are. They've been making sure. On one hand, they've been complaining, and so the game that they're playing is, on one hand, you probably heard it, is that they keep saying, oh my gosh, the Republicans are crazy. These like people who like who think the election was stolen, all the this, that, and the third. They're like making their way through primaries. The Republicans are so crazy. On the other hand, they're helping force radicalize the Republicans by pushing out more liberal and moderate Republicans and conservatives from the party to push for people who are to the right of Donald Trump, effectively making the standard Republican more crazy radical than what we were expecting before. Effectively, the reason for why the Republican Party looks the way it does today is because of the Democrats pushing for the Republicans to get that radical. And once again, their goal is to actually beat these people in a couple months in November. And so they'll knock all them down and they'll be like, oh, it'll be so easy to beat them because they're just so crazy, right? They're just so crazy. It's going to be so easy to beat them. Or at least they'll say that it's going to be much easier than they thought that it would be in November. As this article says, these ploys don't always work. Democrat interference in earlier Republican contests had mixed results. Joe Lombardo of Clark County, Nevada, won Tuesday's gubernatorial primary despite the DGA's spending $2.1 million portraying him as soft on crime. In California's June 7th primaries, Democrats tried to boost extremist challengers to GOP representatives Young Kim and David Vallado, both whom still made it through to the November ballot. Let's move a little forward here, okay? So this article is about Democrats are bankrolling ads promoting fringe Republican candidates. Here's why. But I want to read this like really interesting part to you here, okay? So here is where McCaskill, who's like the mastermind behind all this where she like talks about it, okay? there were three. It talks about her story, basically what she sold to Democratic, to the DNC to get them to pay for Republicans to become more radical. There were three viable candidates, and Todd Aiken was one of the weirdest ones. McCaskill said, "I knew he might say some weird things if he were nominated, and he had a lot less money. So we took a poll and figured out what Republican voters would really like about him." Democrats are spending more time and money figuring out what Republican voters would want than their own voters, than their own base. It's insanity. So I spent time figuring out what Republican voters would want, and I decided to give them all of my money and pander to them. It's just like, what the fuck? Why won't Democrats do this but for their own base? What's happening? What's going on? Anyways, McCaskill put her name on the ads as she's required to do. For most of the primary season, Atkin had been behind the polls, but he surged in the last 2 weeks of the campaign as McCaskill's ads aired in Missouri. He ended up winning the primary and losing handily to McCaskill back in 2012. So this is the ad that she played.
Claire McCaskill, and I approve this message.
The most conservative congressman in Missouri as our senator, Todd.
So just so you know, a really interesting thing that she did here, because she's trying to be mad sneaky, okay? What she tried to do was make it seem like the last ad that played was what she like endorsed, or that she just said, like, "I'm Claire McCaskill." That's why it went black again here, okay? To confuse people who are just watching cable TV about where the ad goes. Because typically, "I support this message" goes at the end of political ads, right? She put hers at the beginning, and a black screen in between. It's wild, dude.
The most conservative congressman in Missouri as our senator, Todd Aiken. A crusader against bigger government, Aiken would completely eliminate the departments of education and energy and privatize Social Security. Todd's pro-family agenda would outlaw many forms of contraception, and Aiken alone says President Obama is a complete menace to our civilization. Todd Aiken, Missouri's true conservative, is just too conservative.
It's wild. And so basically what they're doing, they're trying to play reverse psychology on Republican voters. They're like, "Oh my gosh, he's so conservative. He wants to do everything that you like and more. He's crazy. Unlike those fake rhinos, am I right?" And then they want like Republican voters to be like, "What the heck? Well, I can't let that happen. I gotta get him. He's too conservative. Well, I'll tell you what." You know, that's what they think is going to happen. He died of prostate cancer last year. Yeah. Republicans be like based. Yeah, but that's what they want them to say, right? Right? Take a look at this. Fast forward a decade, Democrats are hoping that the same strategy will work. In Pennsylvania, Democratic gubernatorial nominee Josh Shapiro spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on TV ads attacking GOP primary Doug Mastriano. Sorry, I almost forgot how to pronounce his name. While the ads were negative, they deliberately gave a larger platform to issues that resonate with many conservative voters, including skepticism about the legitimacy of the 2020 election. They're actually helping boost election fraud conspiracy theories amongst Republicans. A kind of reverse psychology that Mastriano himself welcomed. I'm going to have to send him a thank you card," Mastriano later told the local news after an outlet seeing the ads. Mastriano, who has been investigated by the House Judiciary's January 6th committee, went on to win the Republican nomination for governor in May. Doug fucking Mastriano. Yes, they pushed for Doug Mastriano. I'm gonna have to send him a thank you card. Thanks, guys. It really worked out because Mastriano has to like change his tune now these days to like make it seem like not as crazy as he actually is, right? He has to temper a lot of his language, and so they're trying to push that back up, trying to remember people. So he gets to not say the actual words, but he still gets to be boosted by it because Democrats are still giving them the money to do it. It is an interesting thing. Once again, this is threatening democracy, but that's the gamble. Didn't Doug call himself a Christian extremist? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I want to take a look at this as well, because this is interesting. So
Richard Irvin's real record on crime? For 15 years, Irvin has been a defense lawyer, profiting by defending some of the most violent and heinous criminals. Domestic abusers and sexual assault. A kidnapper who molested a child.
So yeah, you know. So this is the Democrats attacking a Republican. This is a Republican candidate who had a good chance of becoming like a governor or having like a good race, but they wanted to boost up the even crazier one, right? But I have something that you guys may find interesting.
Same label, so
Wait, take a look at
Republicans
this.
got to check the ingredients. David Same label, so Republicans got to check the ingredients. David Valadao claims he's Republican. Yet, David Valadao voted to impeach President Trump. Yeah, Valadao voted to impeach Trump. And Republican Chris Matisse.
Dude, I love how they got the guy Cadence down for being like a conservative YouTuber. It's the conservative YouTuber like Cadence. They've got it down. Soup. Which Republicans, which soup will you drink?
A true conservative, 100% pro-Trump and proud. Pro-Trump Republican Chris Matisse, military veteran, local businessman, or politician David Valadao who voted to impeach Trump. Republicans, it's time to decide. House Majority PAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
This is a Democrat ad. This is a Democratic ad. Okay. This was a Democratic ad. Anyways, despite House Majority PAC's efforts, Valadao won 25% of the vote compared to Mathis's 23% of the vote. Valadao will go on to face the Democratic nominee and the state assembly member Rudy Salas in November. So they spent all that money, still lost. Spent all that money on Republicans, still lost. When what could they? I mean, it's not like Democrats have anything to use their money on these days, right? Like, they just have all this money sitting around, burning a hole in their pocket. Why not spend it on something fun? Why not spend it on something cool? Like, you know, radicalizing the Republicans. Something along those lines, right? I mean, we'll totally beat them, right? I mean, here, I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't want to get ahead of myself too quickly. I don't want to get ahead of myself too quickly. The thing is, like, even the crazy thing about this is that they still push forward with this idea, even while they know it may not even work. Take a look at this. This is from McCaskill's own words, which he told to NPR. When Todd Akin said what I wanted him to say, something was off the wall in the something that was off the wall in the general election. Unlike today, the Republican leadership would all come together and reject him. I'm not sure you can count on Republican leaders to stand up against and reject a candidate that said things that were abhorrent to most voters. So, can I get like a little like raise of hands in chat? Can you press 1 in chat if you think the Republican leadership will stand up and reject a crazy Republican candidate? Or 2 in chat, do you think that they'll accept them with open arms? Like what are you guys feeling? 2? 2? Really? You're gonna think 2? What? Come on. What do you mean 2? Like they're not gonna do that. Like they're totally gonna, like, they don't want to be known as a crazy party, right? They don't want to be seen as radical. That's wild. What party would want to do that? That's insane, dude. What? Democrats playing a massive role in getting the most radical Republicans elected into office? Come on, they wouldn't want to stand by that. Some Democratic Party operatives criticize this strategy. I think it's very dangerous and potentially very risky to elevate people who are hostile to democracy. This man's spitting. Holy! Either this is a crisis moment or it isn't. And if it is, which it is, you don't play cute with a crisis. It's wild. It's wild. This is like, it's giving tens of millions of dollars to people who want to do away with democracy in favor of a fascist, religious, extremist, theocratic regime. I don't know if that's a good idea, but come on. You know who else had this same idea about like putting up crazy right-wing politicians? A little person. You may not have heard of her. Her name was Hillary Clinton. we can take a look at what history has to tell us about these issues. How Hillary Clinton's campaign deliberately elevated Donald Trump with its Pied Piper strategy. So this is the Pied Piper. So this is what they called the Pied Piper strategy. Did we not learn from 2016? No, this is like the opposite of learning. They expanded it. They expanded it in 2022 from 2016. Donald Trump, a far-right demagogue who campaigned on a slew of bigoted and xenophobic policies, won the 2016 general presidential election. WikiLeaks leaked this, and in its self-described Pied Piper strategy, the Clinton campaign proposed intentionally cultivating extreme right-wing presidential candidates, hoping to turn them into the new mainstream of the Republican Party in order to increase Clinton's chances of winning. So instead of spending that money on, going to the states that she would eventually lose, paying for ads to boost herself, figuring out what the Democratic base wanted, building a coalition to actually get it done, she spent it on elevating Donald Trump. And here's what this was. April 2015. Memo was intended to outline the strategy and goals and a potential Hillary Clinton presidential campaign would have regarding the 2016 Republican presidential field. All right. And so this is addressed to the DNC. Our goals, our hope is that the goal of a potential HRC campaign and the DNC would be one in the same. Okay, so the DNC and the HRC would be one and the same. Hey, remember how Bernie was in this election cycle? To make whoever the Republicans nominate unpalatable to the majority of the electorate, we have outlined 3 strategies to obtain the goal. Force all Republican candidates to lock themselves into extreme conservative positions that will hurt them in the general. Undermine any credibility and trust Republican presidential candidates have to make inroads or coalitions with independents. Muddy the waters on any potential attack levied at HRC. The Pied Piper candidates. There are 2 ways to approach these strategies mentioned above. The first is to use the field as a whole to inflict damage on itself. Similar to what happened to Mitt Romney in 2012, a variety of candidates is a positive here, and many in the lesser known can serve as a cudgel to move more establishment candidates further to the right. So not only were they looking to boost up far right candidates, they were looking to move the entire Republican Party to the right. Since 2016, do you think that the Republican Party has moved to the left or the right? For me personally, I think that they've moved to the right, and pretty far and sharply to the right. This is exactly what Hillary Clinton wanted. This is what we're living in right now is what Hillary Clinton personally pushed for the direction this country can go in. I'm not sure if she wasn't thinking of the long-term implications of this idea, but one thing that she didn't think of is pushing through an unelectable candidate, but she forgot that she was more unelectable than the unelectable candidate that she put forward. And she lost. Top of this list of people who wanted to be the Pied Piper, okay? Because what she wanted to do, okay? And tell me if this sounds familiar to you. She wanted to boost up Donald Trump to be the head of the Republican Party. And for all of the Republicans to basically kowtow to him and follow him wherever he goes and follow him to the far right fringes of our political window of how we operate. Does that sound familiar to you? Do you think that happened? Do you think that Donald Trump was the Pied Piper who helped lead a lot of Republicans who may not even have been that far right to more far right positions because he pushed it that way? He led them there. I think that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what they wanted. That's the strategy that they're trying to implement right now. In some places, it will work. In some places, it absolutely won't. This is a gamble on a planetary scale. This is a gamble on a planetary scale that could lead to Republicans gaining more far-right positions and being in more political seats than we could have imagined previously, because they're touching on things that some Republican voters want. Now, is it great everywhere? Absolutely not. There are lots of places where this is not going to lead to more Republicans being around, right? But some places where Republicans have a strong foothold already, it will lead them to being that way because they can get away with it because there's enough voters for them to still win, even if they lose independents. They're helping harden and radicalize the Republican base to a degree that I didn't even know that these people, I knew they were stupid. I didn't think that they were this stupid. This is too much. Hey, instead of spending all this time and money pushing for the Republicans to be more radical so you can beat them without like moving your ass, how about you actually get up on your 2 feet and earn those votes? How about you reach out to people and get them to vote for you so we won't have to worry about who the Republican is because you're better than them and you're going to win. But no, they're going to think, why are we going to give people something to vote for? Why don't we just always give them something to vote against? It's completely ridiculous. It's madness. Just so you know, the reason why we have the reason why like Dr. Oz is running in like Pennsylvania is because he was helped to be propped up by Democrats. They gave him a lot of ad money. They did. And while that was actually a decent play by Democrats in the sense of it's good for them for Oz to run instead of the other Republican, at the end of the day, what that does is push the Republicans to the right when it comes to the type of candidates that they will vote for. They're going to be more comfortable in the future voting for someone like Oz and even slightly to the right of Oz, creeping the Republicans further and further and further to the right. Smack. Moving the candidates further to the right in an attempt to make their lives easier. It's a gamble that could ruin the entire world, let alone the country. I have a word for what this is, but I can't say it. You know what I mean? I have a word for what this type of thinking is, but I can't say it. I can't say it. I cannot speak. I'll be in very big trouble if I speak. I cannot speak. I cannot speak. Oh no, I cannot.